There's a moment in life when everything shifts, when the reality you thought was solid cracks beneath your feet, leaving you grasping for something, anything, to hold on to. For me, that moment came on a quiet Tuesday night. I was in the kitchen rinsing out my coffee mug when my wife, Mallerie, leaned against the counter, arms crossed, watching me. There was something in her posture, almost restless, like she had something to say but was still deciding how to say it. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and turned to her. "What's up?" She hesitated, then took a deep breath. "I want to ask you something, and I don't want you to freak out." That was never a good way to start a conversation. My heart beat just a little faster. "Okay," I said slowly. She exhaled sharply, tapping her nails against the counter. "Would you ever be open to, like, an arrangement?" I frowned. "What do you mean, an arrangement?" She bit her lip, then gave me this half shrug, like what she was about to say wasn't a big deal. "A free pass. Just one night. No strings. No emotions. Just something different." For a second, I wasn't sure if I heard her right. I blinked at her, waiting for some kind of punchline, but she just stared back at me, eyes steady. She was serious. A strange numbness spread through me. I tried to speak, but no words came. My own wife, Mallerie, the woman who had once cried happy tears when I proposed, the woman I built a life with, was standing in our kitchen casually asking if she could sleep with someone else. I sat down, the dish towel slowly, carefully. "You're joking, right?" She shook her head. "No, it's not a big deal, Clarence. Plenty of couples do it. It's just an experience." I laughed, but it was a hollow, humorless sound. "An experience? That's what we're calling it now." Her jaw tightened. "I knew you'd react like this." I stepped back, running a hand through my hair, trying to process. My mind raced through the years we had spent together, the vacations, the late-night talks, the way she used to look at me like I was the only person in the world. Had all of that meant nothing? "Who is he?" I asked. My voice came out quieter than I expected. She hesitated just a second too long. I exhaled. "So there is someone." "It's not like that," she rushed to say. "It's just a thought, a fantasy. I thought maybe you'd understand." Understand? I felt something inside me snap, not with anger, but with something colder, something final. I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time I didn't recognize the person standing in front of me. "You want a free pass," I said. "Fine, but I have two conditions." She tilted her head, clearly not expecting that response. "Okay. What?" I met her gaze, my voice steady. "1, you tell me the truth about why you want this. And 2, I paused, letting the tension stretch between us. "You hear my offer in return." She frowned. "Your offer?" I nodded. "You get your one night, Mallerie, but I get to decide what happens next." Her expression faltered just slightly. For the first time since this conversation started, she looked nervous. And she should be, because I already knew exactly what I was going to do. Mallory's expression wavered for just a moment, her confidence faltering. I saw the slight tremor in her fingers as she brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. She hadn't expected me to agree. She had expected resistance, maybe even anger, but I wasn't going to give her the reaction she wanted. I wanted answers. "Clarence, come on," she said, her voice softer now, like she was trying to calm me down. "It's not like I'm asking to leave you. It's just a thought, a fun idea. A lot of people do this, and it doesn't mean they love each other any less." I studied her, taking in every little detail. The way she wouldn't quite meet my eyes, the way she shifted her weight from one foot to the other. This wasn't just an idea. This had been brewing in her mind for a while, and the fact that she was bringing it up now with so much hesitation told me she was already halfway out the door. "You didn't answer my question," I said, my voice calm. "Who is he?" She stiffened. "There's no one." I raised an eyebrow. "Then why are you asking this now? Out of nowhere." She crossed her arms, the defensive stance coming out. "I don't know, Clarence. Maybe because I feel stuck. Maybe because I'm tired of feeling like I'm missing out. Maybe because I see other people living their lives and wonder, why not me?" There it was. the truth she didn't want to say out loud. She wasn't asking for permission. She was asking for justification. I let her words settle, let the weight of them sink into my bones. For years, I had done everything I could to make her happy. I had worked late to give her the home she wanted. I had sacrificed. I had compromised. I had poured every ounce of myself into this marriage. And now, after everything, she felt stuck. I exhaled slowly, forcing down the bitterness rising in my throat. So let me get this straight. You want a free pass because you feel like you're missing out? Because our life isn't exciting enough for you? She rolled her eyes. That's not what I said. No, I said, my tone sharp. But it's what you meant. A tense silence stretched between us. She glanced away, pressing her lips together like she was waiting for me to explode. But I wouldn't give her that. I refused to let her dictate the terms of this conversation. All right, I finally said, my voice even. I'll give you your one night. Her eyes snapped back to me, surprise flickering across her face. What? You heard me. You can have your free pass. I stepped closer, watching her reaction carefully. But before you take it, I want you to answer one thing. She swallowed. What? I tilted my head. Are you willing to risk everything for this? She frowned. What do you mean? I kept my gaze locked on hers. You think this is just one night, a harmless experience. But let me tell you something, Mallerie. There's no coming back from this. Once you cross that line, we can't pretend things are the same. You won't be able to erase it, and I sure as hell won't forget it. She hesitated, shifting on her feet. It's not like I'm in love with someone else, Clarence. It's just curiosity. I let out a humorless chuckle. Curiosity, I repeated. That's what we're calling it now? Her jaw clenched. You're being dramatic. No, I'm being honest. I shot back. You want honesty, right? Well, here it is. I don't want a marriage where we're testing boundaries like this. I don't want to be the guy sitting at home while my wife experiments with someone else. She exhaled sharply, frustration creeping into her expression. It's not that deep, Clarence. It's just. Then why do you look so nervous? I interrupted. If this is so harmless, why do you look like you're waiting for me to lose it? She didn't answer, and that silence told me everything. I leaned against the counter, folding my arms. So here's the deal, Mallerie. You can have your free pass, but I get one too. Her eyebrows pulled together. What? You heard me, I said coolly. If you get a night with someone else, so do I. She let out a short laugh, shaking her head. Oh, come on. That's not even fair. I cut in. Why not? You're asking for something that completely changes the foundation of our marriage. If this is so harmless, if it means nothing, then why does the idea of me doing the same thing bother you? Her face went pale. See, I said, watching as realization dawned in her expression. You don't want this to be equal. You don't want an open marriage. You just want permission to do whatever you want while I stay faithful, waiting for you to decide if I'm still enough for you. She swallowed hard. Clarence, I don't need an answer right now, I said, cutting her off. But if you decide to go through with this, I want you to think long and hard about what it really means. Because once you make your choice, you'll have to live with the consequences. Her lips parted slightly, like she wanted to argue, but she didn't. She just stared at me, and for the first time since this conversation started, I saw something that almost looked like fear in her eyes, and that told me I was right. Mallerie didn't say a word after my ultimatum. Her lips pressed into a thin line, and she just stood there, staring at me like I had morphed into someone she didn't recognize. Maybe I had. Maybe the version of me that had spent years worshipping the ground she walked on was finally gone. I turned away, acting as if the conversation was over, but I felt her eyes on me, analyzing, calculating. She had expected resistance, maybe an argument where she could play the victim, claim I was being irrational. What she hadn't expected was for me to put the choice back in her hands, with real consequences. A minute passed, then another. The air between us was thick with something unspoken. Finally, she sighed. So, if I say no, what does that mean? I glanced at her. Then we pretend this conversation never happened. But you have to mean it, Mallerie. No hidden regrets. No quiet resentment eating away at us. Her fingers tapped against the counter, a nervous habit I'd never paid attention to before. And if I say yes? I met her gaze, my voice steady. Then you get your night, but so do I. And after that, we decide if this marriage is even worth saving. She swallowed, shifting on her feet. And what if I don't want you to be with someone else? A humorless smile pulled at my lips. Why does it bother you? I thought this wasn't a big deal. She flinched at the words, but I wasn't going to comfort her. Not this time. Silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. I wanted her to feel the weight of what she was asking, to truly understand that this wasn't a game. Then, after what felt like forever, she exhaled sharply. I need to think. I nodded, stepping back. Take your time. And with that, I walked out of the kitchen, leaving her alone with the reality of her choices. The next few days were filled with an unbearable tension. We spoke, but only about surface-level things, work, groceries, whether we should fix the leaky faucet in the guest bathroom. But underneath it all, I could feel the question hanging between us like a loaded gun. One evening, as I was settling onto the couch, Mallerie finally broke the silence. I want to talk, she said, standing in the doorway. I turned the TV off, giving her my full attention. All right. She stepped into the room, arms crossed, her expression unreadable. I thought about it. I waited, my heart pounding even though I kept my face neutral. She inhaled deeply. I don't want to lose what we have, Clarence. I love you. A bitter taste filled my mouth. But she hesitated, then forced the words out. But I still want to do this. Just once. Just to know what it's like. Even though I had prepared myself for this answer, it still felt like a punch to the gut. I nodded slowly, suppressing the anger rising in my chest. Okay. Mallerie frowned slightly, as if confused by my calmness. Okay. You made your choice, I said simply. So now it's my turn. Her throat bobbed as she swallowed. What does that mean? I leaned back, my gaze never leaving hers. It means we do this my way. If we're opening this door, we do it with rules. No lies, no hiding. And we both know exactly what's happening. She bit her lip. Okay. What do you have in mind? I let the silence stretch just a little longer before I spoke. We choose each other's partner. Her eyes widened. What? I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees. You don't get to sneak off with some guy you've been fantasizing about. If you want this, then we do it with complete transparency. I pick who you sleep with, and you pick who I sleep with. Her face paled. That's ridiculous. Why? I asked, tilting my head. If this is just an experience, if there's no emotional attachment, then it shouldn't matter, right? She opened her mouth, then closed it. For the first time, she looked genuinely uneasy. Unless, I continued, my voice low. There is someone specific you had in mind. Mallerie looked away, jaw tight. That was all the confirmation I needed. I let out a slow breath. I thought so. A long silence stretched between us. Finally, she muttered, This isn't what I expected. I shrugged. Neither was your little proposal, but here we are. She hesitated, then whispered, And if I don't agree to this? I met her gaze, my expression unreadable. Then the deal is off. You either play by the same rules or you don't play at all. Her lips parted slightly, and for the first time since this conversation started, she looked unsure, uncomfortable. Like maybe, just maybe, she was finally realizing what she had set into motion. And that was exactly what I wanted. Mallerie didn't answer me right away. She just stood there, her fingers twisting in the hem of her sweater, her mind racing behind those nervous eyes. I could see it. The hesitation, the realization that she had stepped into something far bigger than she anticipated. She had expected me to be angry, to refuse, maybe even to beg her not to do it. But instead, I had done the one thing she wasn't prepared for. I gave her what she asked for. The difference was, I wasn't going to let her dictate the terms. So I prompted, leaning back against the couch, studying her reaction. Do we have a deal or not? She exhaled sharply. Clarence, this is insane. You're twisting this into something completely different. I tilted my head. Am I? You wanted one night, right? No emotions, no strings, just an experience. If that's truly what this is about, then why does it matter who I choose for you? Her jaw clenched, and for a long moment, she said nothing. Finally, she sat down across from me, crossing her arms. And how do I know you won't pick someone awful just to punish me? I smirked. You don't. She let out a bitter laugh, shaking her head. I should have known you'd turn this into a game. It's not a game, I corrected. It's a test. You said this isn't about feelings, that it's just curiosity. Well, let's see if that's really true. She frowned, tapping her fingers against her arm. And what about you? I shrugged. What about me? If I agree to this, she said carefully, that means I get to pick for you too. I met her gaze head-on. Of course. She searched my face, looking for cracks in my composure. I gave her none. For years, I had been the devoted husband, the steady foundation, the man who never questioned her choices. But that version of me was gone. I wasn't going to make this easy for her. After a long pause, she finally muttered, Fine. A slow smile crept onto my lips. Good. The next morning, things were eerily normal. We moved around each other in the kitchen like we weren't on the brink of something irreversible. I made my coffee. She poured herself a glass of juice. We exchanged casual small talk. Nothing deep, nothing meaningful. It was almost funny, in a sick way. But then, as she was putting her mug in the sink, she hesitated. So, how does this work? I set my coffee down, looking at her. Simple. We each pick someone. No backing out once the choice is made. Her grip tightened on the counter. And when? That's up to you, I said, taking a sip of my coffee. You were the one who wanted this. She shifted on her feet. I need time. I nodded. Take all the time you need. I wanted her to sit with it. I wanted her to feel the weight of what she had set into motion. And most of all, I wanted her to realize she had lost control of this entire situation. That night, I heard her on the phone in the other room. She thought she was being quiet, but I could hear the muffled whispers, the nervous edge to her voice. I didn't know who she was talking to. I didn't need to. She already had someone in mind. I sat in the dark, staring at the ceiling, feeling something shift inside me. The old me, the one who would have spent the night torturing himself over who it could be, what she was planning, was gone. I wasn't the naive husband anymore. I wasn't the fool who thought love was enough to keep someone loyal. No, I was something else now. And when the time came, Mallerie would realize she had never really been in control at all. For the next few days, our house became a stage. Mallerie played her part well. She still kissed me good morning, still asked about my day, still curled up next to me on the couch in the evenings as if nothing had changed. But I could see the shift in her, the way she was always in her head, playing out scenarios, trying to find an angle that gave her the outcome she wanted. She thought she was being discreet, but I wasn't the same man she had once fooled with casual smiles and dismissive reassurances. I watched her closer than ever, noting every flicker of hesitation, every nervous glance at her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. She had made her choice. Now she was stalling, trying to decide if she had the nerve to follow through with it. I gave her space. I let her stew in her own uncertainty. I wanted her to feel it pressing down on her, suffocating her. This wasn't some fantasy anymore. This was real. Then one evening, as I was washing dishes, she finally spoke. So, she leaned against the counter, arms crossed, her voice careful. Have you thought about your choice? I kept my face neutral, drying a plate. Have you? Her lips parted slightly, like she hadn't expected me to throw the question back at her so quickly. She shifted her weight. I might have someone in mind. I nodded. So do I. That got her attention. Her brow furrowed slightly, and she studied me as if trying to read my mind. Who? She asked, feigning indifference. I set the plate down and turned to her. We'll reveal our choices at the same time. Her throat bobbed as she swallowed. You're really going through with this? I tilted my head. I thought this was what you wanted. She hesitated, and for the first time, I saw real doubt flicker in her eyes. That was the moment I knew she had never expected to actually go through with this. She had expected pushback, had wanted to argue, to fight, maybe even to break down and beg her not to do it. She had wanted power, a sense of control over our marriage that she had convinced herself she had lost. Instead, she had gotten something she never anticipated. She had gotten a version of me she didn't know how to handle. Mallerie exhaled, rubbing her forehead. Fine. Tomorrow. I nodded. Tomorrow. The clock was ticking. That night I barely slept. Not because I was anxious, no. That part of me had burned away the moment she had made her request. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound of her breathing beside me. Steady, slow. She was exhausted, mentally drained from the weight of her own choices. Good. By morning, there was no turning back. We sat across from each other at the dining table, coffee cups between us, the air thick with tension. She was the first to speak. You go first. I smirked. No. We say it at the same time. She frowned, clearly uncomfortable, but she nodded. Fine. I counted down in my head. 3, 2, 1. And then, together, we spoke. She said, Daniel. I said, your sister. The silence that followed was absolute. Mallory's face drained of color, her coffee cup slipping slightly in her grip. What? She choked out. I leaned back, crossing my arms. You heard me. She blinked rapidly, as if trying to process what I had just said. That's not funny, Clarence. I'm not joking. She stared at me, her mouth slightly open, her fingers gripping the edge of the table so tightly her knuckles turned white. You can't, she whispered. Why not? I asked, my voice calm. You said this is just about an experience, right? No emotions, no strings. So why does it matter? She shook her head, her expression somewhere between disbelief and panic. Because she's my sister, Clarence. That's not the same. I tilted my head. How is it any different? She opened her mouth, then closed it. For the first time since this conversation began, she was speechless. I watched her, taking in the way her entire body tensed, the way her breathing had become shallow. She had expected me to choose someone random, maybe even someone she knew. But not this. Never this. She wasn't upset about the idea of me being with another woman. She was upset about who that woman was. And that told me everything I needed to know. I leaned forward, lowering my voice just enough to make sure she heard every single word. If you can do this without feelings, I said slowly, then so can I. She swallowed hard, her entire world unraveling in front of her. The game she thought she had control over had just been turned against her. And now she had to decide if she was really willing to play. Mallorie's reaction was exactly what I expected. She sat frozen, her eyes darting between me and her untouched coffee cup, as if willing herself to wake up from a nightmare. I watched her, calm and composed, while she struggled to process what I had just said. Finally, she found her voice. You're out of your mind, Clarence, she muttered, shaking her head. I tilted my head slightly. Why? Because I'm playing by the rules you set. She let out a shaky breath, rubbing her temples. This isn't the same thing. You're just doing this to punish me. I leaned back, crossing my arms. Am I? I thought this was about experiences. No strings, no emotions. So why does it bother you who I choose? She stared at me, her lips pressing into a thin line. Because it's my sister, Clarence. Do you even hear yourself? I took a slow sip of my coffee before answering. I hear myself just fine. The real question is, do you hear yourself? She let out a humorless laugh, shaking her head. This is sick. I can't believe you'd even suggest something like that. I placed my mug down with deliberate slowness. Why? Because it makes you uncomfortable? You weren't uncomfortable when you asked me to be okay with you sleeping with someone else. You weren't uncomfortable when you said it was just an experience. She looked away, her jaw tightening. "Tell me, Mallerie," I continued. "Why was this such an easy request when you were the one making it? But now that I'm the one holding the cards, you suddenly can't handle it?" She didn't answer. Instead, she reached for her phone and stood up abruptly. "I need air." I watched her as she walked out onto the patio, her shoulders tense, her breathing uneven. She was unraveling, but she was too stubborn to admit it. That was fine. I had all the time in the world. I let her have her moment, giving her space to stew in her own mess. Meanwhile, I picked up my phone and sent a single text. "Hey, are you free to grab coffee later? Need to talk." The response came quickly. "Sure. Everything okay?" I smirked before typing back, "I'll explain when I see you." I wasn't playing the game Mallerie thought I was. I had no intention of actually going through with my choice, but she didn't know that. I wanted to see how far she was willing to take this. And more importantly, I wanted to see if she'd crack under the pressure of her own decisions. When Mallerie came back inside, her face was pale, her eyes slightly puffy. She had been thinking hard. She sat back down across from me, gripping her phone tightly. "I don't think we should do this," she said finally, her voice quieter than before. I raised an eyebrow. "Oh? What changed?" She exhaled sharply, avoiding my gaze. I don't think it's a good idea." I studied her for a long moment before nodding slowly. "That's fine." She blinked, clearly surprised that I wasn't going to argue. "Wait, just like that?" I shrugged. "You made your choice. That's all I wanted." She swallowed. You don't actually want to be with her, right?" I leaned forward, resting my arms on the table. "I wanted you to understand what you were asking, and now you do." She didn't respond right away. Instead, she rubbed her hands together, her nails pressing into her skin. I could see it now, how small she felt in that moment, how the fantasy she had built in her head had collapsed under the weight of reality. She had wanted something that gave her power, but in the end, it only showed her how quickly she could lose it. "Clarence," she said, my name softly, hesitantly. "I'm sorry." I nodded, but I didn't say anything, because now the question wasn't whether she regretted it. It was whether I still wanted to be with someone who had ever asked for it in the first place. Mallerie sat across from me, waiting for something. Maybe for me to say that I forgave her, that we could move on like none of this had ever happened. But I wasn't going to make this easy for her. The damage was already done, whether she realized it or not. "I'm sorry," she repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. I let her words hang in the air between us, watching her squirm under the weight of them. She wasn't just apologizing for what she had said. She was apologizing for everything. For the way she had underestimated me, for the way she had assumed I would just roll over and accept whatever version of marriage she wanted to create. I should have felt satisfied. I should have felt like I had won. But instead, I just felt empty. Slowly, I leaned back in my chair, exhaling through my nose. "What exactly are you sorry for?" She blinked, caught off guard by the question. She hesitated. "For asking in the first place. For not thinking about how it would make you feel." I nodded, but I still didn't let her off the hook. "And if I had just said yes? If I had agreed without hesitation, would you have still been sorry?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. She didn't have an answer. That told me everything. She had only backed down because she had been forced to confront her own hypocrisy. She hadn't expected me to put her in the same position she had so casually placed me in. And when she had to think about it from my side, when she had to imagine me with someone else, suddenly it wasn't just an experience anymore. I stood up, pushing my chair back. "I need some air." She looked up at me, her expression cautious. "Are you coming back?" I let the silence stretch, considering my response. "Yeah," I finally said, though I wasn't entirely sure it was true. I stepped outside, letting the cool evening air hit my face. The street was quiet, only the distant sound of crickets filling the silence. I stood there, staring at the darkened sky, my thoughts spinning. What exactly was I supposed to do now? Mallerie had made her choice. She had opened a door she could never fully close. And even though she was now trying to slam it shut, the damage was already done. I could never unhear her words. I could never erase the moment when she had looked me in the eye and asked for permission to betray me. And the worst part? She had wanted me to say no. She had wanted the thrill of knowing I had denied her, of feeling like she had sacrificed something for the sake of our marriage. But instead, I had forced her to see what she was really asking for. And now she hated it. I heard the door creak open behind me. I didn't turn around. Clarence. Her voice was soft, hesitant. I stayed quiet, waiting. She sighed. Please talk to me. I turned slightly, just enough to see her out of the corner of my eye. She looked small, unsure, so different from the confident woman who had first proposed this whole thing. What do you want me to say, Mallerie? Her arms wrapped around herself, as if trying to protect herself from the cold, or maybe from the truth. That we can fix this. That we can go back to the way things were. I let out a slow breath, shaking my head. We can't. She flinched. Why not? Because the way things were doesn't exist anymore. I turned fully to face her now, my expression unreadable. You didn't just ask for one night, Mallerie. You asked me to be okay with a version of you I never knew existed. And I don't know if I can be okay with that. Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't reach out to comfort her. This time, she had to sit in the discomfort of her own choices. I love you, she whispered. I studied her for a long moment. Do you? I asked. She looked stunned, like the thought had never crossed her mind. Of course I do. Then why wasn't I enough? Her breath hitched, and I saw her chin tremble slightly, but she didn't answer because she couldn't. She had wanted more, not because she didn't love me, but because she had convinced herself that love alone wasn't enough. That excitement, that newness, was something she deserved to chase, no matter the cost. She had never expected me to force her to confront what that really meant. And now that she had, she wasn't sure if she liked what she saw. I exhaled and turned back toward the street, staring out into the darkness. I need time, I finally said. Mallory's breath caught. Time for what? I glanced back at her. To decide if I can ever trust you again. Her face crumpled, but I didn't stay to watch the tears fall. I stepped away, heading down the sidewalk, needing distance, needing clarity, needing to figure out if the woman I had loved for so many years was really the same person I had married, or if she was already gone. The days that followed were the longest of my life. I stayed away from home more than usual, working late, going for long drives, finding excuses to be anywhere but in that house where everything had changed. Mallerie gave me space, probably afraid to push too hard, afraid of the answer I might come back with. I needed time to think, to process, to decide if the love I once had for her could survive what she had done. It wasn't just about her question. It was about what it meant, about what it said about our marriage, about us. But somewhere in the silence, I realized something. Mallerie had been wrong to ask me for a free pass, but I had been wrong too. I had spent so much time punishing her for it, making her feel the weight of her mistake, that I hadn't stopped to consider why she had asked in the first place. Maybe she wasn't looking for a way out of our marriage. Maybe she was looking for a way back in. It wasn't an excuse, but it was an explanation. And that was something I needed to face. On the fifth night, I finally came home at a normal hour. Mallerie was sitting on the couch, staring at the dark TV screen, her fingers nervously twisting together. She jumped when she saw me. Clarence. She stood quickly, like she wasn't sure if I was about to leave again. Can we talk? I nodded, and we sat across from each other, the air between us thick with everything that had been left unsaid. She swallowed hard. I've been thinking a lot about why I said what I did, about why I even considered something like that. She took a deep breath, her hands shaking slightly. I wasn't looking for someone else. I was looking for something different, and I was too afraid to say that I needed more from you. I didn't speak right away, letting her words sink in. She wiped at her eyes quickly. I don't deserve forgiveness, and I know that. But if there's any part of you that still loves me, any part of you that thinks we're worth saving, I want to try. Really try. No games, no resentment. Just us. She was laying everything bare now. No excuses, no defenses. Just honesty. I sighed, rubbing my temple. I don't know if I can forget, Mallerie. She nodded. I don't expect you to. I looked at her for a long time, searching for something, proof that she was telling the truth, that this wasn't just guilt, that she meant it. And I saw it. Not desperation, not manipulation, just regret and love. And despite everything, I still loved her too. So I made my choice. We rebuild, I said finally. Her breath hitched. We do. I nodded, my voice steady. But not as we were before. We rebuild into something better. Together. Tears slid down her face, but this time they weren't from sadness. They were from relief. And as she wrapped her arms around me, holding on as if afraid I might change my mind, I realized something. Maybe, just maybe, this wasn't the end. Maybe it was the beginning.